Hello and welcome to Circuit Circus. I'm your teacher, Trollman, and today I'll be showing you how to make a bird system for your games. Demonstration, right? Enable it. There you go. Flap the wings. Yeah! Alright, so that's what we're gonna be doing for today. So, first thing you want to grab is a roll chip. A roll chip gives certain attributes towards your player, and will allow you to do different things and separate players from other players. For example, you can filter out players via rolls. Now, in this system, we're gonna make a turning on and off system for this bird system. Now, next thing you want to grab is a button. Now, with this button, it's gonna be what allows us to turn on and off our bird system. This is all the physical objects you're gonna need. Everything else is just gonna be CV2. Now, what you want to grab next is something called an event receiver. And now, event receivers are in-game events that happen based off of Rec Room events. So, in this case, we're going to be using a 30 hertz event receiver, which basically means that the execution will execute 30 times a second, meaning it's going to be executing quite fast and will constantly update. Now, the next thing that we want to get is we want to be able to detect if the player actually has the role that we need. So in this case, we're going to be using this chip. Now, here, it checks if the player has the role. We're not going to localize it or anything, since this is just intermediate. I'm not going to do all the networking stuff. But we're going to make it so it detects the role, new role. I'm not going to give it a name, but you guys can give it a name. You guys can also use tags. Tags are quite useful, but I would prefer to use roles if you are not experienced with tags and how they work. Now, with this, we want to also do a little bit of math. Not a lot of people like math, but we're going to do it anyways. So we're going to get local player. We're going to grab a get local player chip. Then we're going to grab something called left. We're going to get one for left and right hand, since we're trying to use both hands to move around. So we're going to get a left hand and a right hand. Right hand velocity. And then we're going to get another thing called magnitude. So this magnitude just displays how strong or how hard you're going in a certain direction. It's basically the intensity of your velocity. So in this case, we're setting it to these. We're setting it to the local player. You don't necessarily need to get this local player chip. It's just useful for these sorts of cases. Actually, yeah, we'll do it without the get local player chip. Now, here comes the part where you have to use a bit of logic. So this is known as game logic. What you want to grab is greater than or equal to. What this chip does is that it gets the value from A and compares that value with value B. Now, if value A is greater than or equal to the number that's value B, it will display true. If it's lower or not equal to that the value B, it will display false. So in this case, right here, it will say true because currently my right hand and left hand is moving at a greater velocity than 0. So we don't really want that. This basically sets the intensity or how hard you need to throw your hands to start flying. So in this case, I'm going to be using the number 6 since it's moderately heavy. Now, what we also want to do is we want to compare these values, make sure that both values are greater than, so we're going to get something called an add chip. Not an add chip, we're going to get something called an AND chip. Connect these two. And then we're going to do the rest of it. So we're going to grab an if chip. So for those who don't know what an if statement is, if statements are dependent on booleans, which are true or false statements. If something is true, then the then will execute. If something else is false, then it will execute the else port. Hold up, let me explain that. For those who don't know what an if chip is, based on the condition, true or false, then we'll execute when it's true, else we'll execute when it's false. So this just is checking if something is greater than another. We're making sure that these are both equal. Yeah, we're making sure that both of these are equal, which will result in here. If both of these are true, then it will display true and execute here. And then what we're gonna get next is velocity add. Velocity add. And then we're setting it to the wait, no. Now I remember why I needed to get local player. My bad. We're gonna grab a get local player, push that into the target, and then we're gonna get something called a vector 3 create. So we're creating a new vector or a direction in this case. Rec Room has renamed the velocity add to velocity on this chip. Usually it used to be called direction. And then we're going to change it to the y-axis. So if you don't know what XYZ means, it's the coordinates on a 3D plane. So we have the x-axis, which is side to side, forward and back. Z-axis, side to side or diagonal, and then y-axis, which is up and down. Now, since we want the player to start going upwards, we're going to push them towards the y-axis in the direction of going up. Now, we don't want it so that the player starts flying like crazy, so we can minimize this. You can also use a velocity set, but velocity add usually is more fun to play around with. This should be your system. This should be your flying system. Now we're gonna make the system for hello CJ. We're now gonna make the system for oh, that's not what I wanted. We're gonna make the system for toggling the roll chip. Now what you want to go ahead and grab is we set the execution to this execution here, data port to this player, and then we add the roll to this new roll here. Now, what we're gonna detect here is that what it basically detects here is that if you have this roll or not, just like the last chip over here. If the player does not have that roll, we're gonna connect it to the does not have roll and make sure it adds that roll. So new roll, and we'll set it to that player. And if they do have that roll, we'll remove the roll. So remove player remove roll. This is getting a little bit cramped, so let's move this up here to make things a lot more clean. And move that up there, this up here. Add the player removed. So if the player does have the roll, then it will remove the roll. So this gives us our toggle. Now, what you'll notice here is that when I press the button, I start flying. That's because that is connected to else, not true. Why? Yeah. Jesus. Okay. But yeah, that's your bird system here. You can just click to swap between them to enable and disable it. So if you do not have the roll, or if you already have the roll, you can see here I'm flapping my hands and it's not pushing me up and down. If I do click it, it'll start bringing me up. Alright, that'll be the end for today's tutorial. Thank you for coming, and I'll see you another episode. Bye-bye! Yes!